In this video, I am going to be talking about extra effective chips with services for silicon design. I'm going to be specifically talking about like the silicon design services. That's like what I'm going to be talking about in this video. First off, this is an introduction. So today we are analyzing an interesting topic, I would say. It's often overlooked, but it's pretty important in the semiconductor industry. And as mentioned before, about like services for silicon design. And they are important because they help chip companies make chips that have more effective performance. And in this video, we will go more in depth into that and talk about we'll go deeper into this topic and talk significantly more about it. So, first off, we got like a challenge here. So, the challenge says why silicon is so complex. Designing a specialized chip from start to silicon is incredibly complex. And you see, the reasons behind why it's complex is because you have to connect different IP blocks, and at the same time, you must see there's a lot of steps. You have to connect different blocks, and you also have to improve every transistor for specific goals. Those would be things like extra low power to be consumed. You don't want a whole lot of power to be consumed, and at the same time, for the chip to be able to perform at high speed, at extreme speed. So you want the chip to be able to perform at extreme speed and low power to be consumed. That's a tough goal to achieve. That's not easy to obtain that criteria. And here says many companies, especially smaller ones or those focused on specific applications like specific technologies. Those would be things like edge AI or Internet of Things, specific things. They might not have the specific tools or maybe the specific expertise for every part of that improving process. So specifically, this would be specifically applied to components that are sensitive to power. So what this means is that they would use this silicon design service. And that's pretty effective because it's specialized and it can look into specific parts of the design process and analyze them and you know, try to it reduces complications and minimizes the potential for error in the design process for the chips. And that's specifically this device, the silicon services. They're specific to silicon, specifically reducing the different problems that might occur with silicon specifically in the design process. This here we talk about the solution. So, what specialized silicon services offer? So, silicon these services they're pretty essential because they're quite important in designing chips. Um, and here we'll talk about more what they are specifically. So they are the silicon services are specialized teams, and they give specific design skills. They're specific. They analyze specific components in the design process, specific parts of the design process. For example, they license IP and they also improve specific parts of a design. And specific examples of that would be developing memory that has extra low power. It gets extra low power to be consumed. a specific type of memory that doesn't consume a lot of power. They could do that, or they could focus on something like improve the power performance area, and they could do this by changing the physical design of the chip. And the physical design of the chip refers to things like the size, speed, or like how much power gets used in the chip. Um, or another example of something they could do, the silicon surfaces, would be something like focusing on highly sensitive components in signals. So they could also focus on some signal related things. And those would be things like analog and mixed signals, those kinds of things. Essentially, these services provide specialized resources to address particular challenges in engineering. And they're very specific. So now here we're going to go into a deeper dive. We're going to talk specifically about like designing for low power consumption, and at the same time talking about different memory, different considerations involving the memory efficiency and systems and devices involving memory. Um, so, first of all, a depiction of these services skills is it's in designing a system that has low power consumption and memory, and reaching the goal of ultra low power in SRAM, for example. This so reaching the goal of like really low power in SRAM, it requires a deep understanding of bed cell architecture. Also have to know like supporting circuits and all of those concepts. And you gotta know some electricity related concepts. Those would be things like how to reduce voltage. And, ultimately, to obtain these criteria, it's essential to enhance the dimensions of transistors while also doing power gating. And power gating, by the way, is shutting off parts of a circuit while they are not being used. So that's pretty helpful if you think about it. Like if certain parts of a circuit are not being used, you shut them down, and that's called power gating. And less power gets used. It's a good way to save some power in the circuit. It's Power gating is a pretty smart technique, I would think, to reducing power usage and possibly even in batteries, like you know to make the battery life longer. Power gating can be a smart technique, I would think. Uh, Also, in some cases, it might mean making different circuit designs, like changing the design of the circuit itself in certain cases. And, yeah, overall, these silicon services, they're very important. They make a big impact for devices, specifically devices that are operated on a battery or AI edge devices. Now, here we're going to talk about the impact. We're going to talk about enhancing or improving innovation. So, the influence of these services is significant. Um, and that would be because, as we discussed before, you know, there's they help a lot in specific parts of the circuit design, such as very specific parts of like power consumption and those kinds of things. Um, Essentially, these systems they help businesses in speeding up their chip development processes and reducing risks. They also um, they're used or they can be used by startup businesses. Uh, and the reason for that is because uh, the startups don't have to invest into every part of the design, but they invest into this service, the silicon service, and that focus on multiple specific parts within the design process. For startups, this could be a pretty smart, technique and designing circuits, and it also um, it's good for reaching different criteria and stuff, like as discussed earlier about the power consumption and things like that. But it's also good for minimizing risk in the circuit design process, minimizing the potential for errors or you know mistakes or non-linearities, like anything that might go wrong. Basically, it helps minimize that risk. These silicon services, specifically in the silicon itself, because the silicon services are generally specific to silicon. Um, this might make silicon services be used more often, and this is essential in the semiconductors ecosystem. And we've discussed this before about different reasons for that. In conclusion, it refers to this silicon service, the silicon services. So, in conclusion, the silicon services allow companies to specialize on their main product, while at the same time having the silicon services analyze complex elements within the silicon. It's pretty essential. Alright, that's the conclusion of this video. I hope you enjoyed. Um, Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you found this video useful. See you in the next video.